we've just finished watching Manchester United lose again in the Premier League. That's 4 defeats, only 3 wins, and the 3 wins, let's be honest, they limped over it. It was, and look, I'm sick of saying stuff about Ten Hag, lads. I'm just a hater. I'm just a hater. Jacob, we got your debut today.
Thank you, mate.
What do you think of Man United at the minute, mate?
Same thing. I've been thinking about them for about 2 years. They're dreadful. But do you know why they're dreadful? Because all their players are dreadful, and all the players are dreadful because they've got a dreadful manager that buys dreadful players. I don't know what United fans are seeing in any of it. I don't know what they're seeing in the tactics. I don't know what they like about the squad.
Yeah, you can't really say anything bad about Ten Hag, and the first thing that people will say now is they'll level the injury crisis at you. Yes, they've got injuries. I'm sure Palace had injuries today, maybe not to the same extent, but all teams pick up injuries. When you look at the lineup they've started today, they got Mason Mount, their £50 million central midfielder back in. They got
Casemiro.
the 30-odd-year-old Casemiro, who they spent 70-odd million or something on. They've got Højlund, the new boy, in. They've got a good enough lineup, and no disrespect to Crystal Palace, that you would believe would be going and beating Crystal Palace. And I said something about Man United in the week, and then they went and turned Palace over in the cup, and everyone said, bet you wish you hadn't have uploaded that. Well, no, I've sort of don't mind uploading it now, because look what's happened. So it's mad how this is going for Ten Hag. And you know, at the start of the season, what odds he was to get sacked. So this was first to get sacked, because bearing in mind we're 6 games in, which on the last few seasons a little bit surprising, no one's been sacked yet, but 250 to 1 he was. When I checked before the final whistle went, he was 16 to 1. I would say more likely now he's going to be about 14 to 1. So it's a mad fall from grace early on in this season, isn't it?
I think Man United fans, the reason they defend him so much is because of the first season he had. I think getting them back into the Champions League, winning a cup, albeit the League Cup, getting to a FA Cup final, so they could have actually had 2 pieces of silverware. I thought it was a decent first season. The football wasn't great. They were still playing transitional football. They were playing on the counter. I think they expected this season for it to kick on, and it's gone backwards. So I think now they need to evaluate.
Why
has
it gone backwards, lads? You know why it's gone backwards?
Go on.
Marcus Rashford's not on fire. Simple as that. And this was a plaster over an axe wound that Man United fans were blind to. And it's just so funny, right? Because this notion of Ten Hag's improved Marcus Rashford. No, he didn't. Marcus Rashford never got any better under Ten Hag than what we'd seen him previously. He had a dip in form. He went back into form, and now he's out of form again. He had nothing to do with Ten Hag. And we're seeing under Ten Hag now, the guy's got 1 goal in 7 games, and this is what happens.
He does this every season, though.
Yeah.
He does this every season, Rashford. He has a purple patch, and then he goes quiet for 2 months. Every single season. He's done that under every manager he's played under. And I don't understand what United fans have got in the way of excuses for Ten Hag. What do they like about him? I think they like the idea of him. I think they like the idea of a clever Dutch manager who's worked under Guardiola coming in and doing good stuff. They still play on the break. They still don't dominate games. They still don't create chances. It's not his fault that the players are bad. It is his fault. He bought all of those players. They're all his players.
Yeah. But can we say it's solely Ten Hag's fault? I mean, he is the manager right now, so what's happening right now is down to him. But can we say it's solely his fault when, since Fergie departed and since the Glazers have been there, no manager has really been that successful? Like, their most successful manager is Jose Mourinho, and they hated his guts. So is it really the manager's fault, or is it a thing where we do have to be looking above
them? Every manager has a chance. Like Ange had a chance, and he took it with Spurs, and he's turning things around.
Yeah, but our club's not as toxic as Man United's club at this point.
You have to judge it for what it is. Like, if you get, let's not kid ourselves, Ten Hag net spend has spent more money in just over a year than Jurgen Klopp spent as an entirety of being Liverpool manager. And that's why Man United fans got excited, because we're getting all these new players, we got this new manager, things are going to change. They're not changing. So if they're not changing, you got to look at the manager's tactics, the way he's selecting teams, and tactically, especially going back to that, he gets found out a lot.
So often. So often. And also, and I get what you're saying, that they haven't been good since Fergie. There is also a world in which the reason they've not been good is because all those managers are bad. All the managers you're talking about, like the ones that have left, they've not gone on and done anything, have they? How many of those managers have gone on and done anything? Like, Solskjaer's nowhere. Like, I think Roma have had the worst start they've ever had under Mourinho this season. Moyes is back at West Ham. Like, it might be a bad setup at United. Still doesn't excuse the fact they're all bad managers.
But then if you get rid of him, let's say they sack him, right? and then you go get another manager again, and then the same thing happens again, you're just going to be in a vicious cycle because the problems outside of the manager still exist. Whether the manager's good or not, there are actually problems at Manchester United Football Club that we're seeing.
But we can't allow like this to be the excuse of, oh well, we've done this before. Yeah, you've picked another bad manager. Like at some point, you will pick a good manager, and good things will happen. Like Newcastle changed from Steve Bruce to Eddie Howe. It was, things work sometimes.
No, but that was the Mike Ashley thing as well, though. You changed owners.
Yeah, and that helped as well. But the difference is Manchester United consistently spend lots and lots and lots of money. They spend more than any other club in the country, and we act like, oh, it's impossible to change because we still got the same owners. You're literally changing nearly every player on that football.
I think we're ignoring there's middle ground as well, because the sort of criticism we're levelling, if you'd call it that, Man United fans, is they're not willing to accept that Ten Hag's making mistakes. You can accept it and you can level that criticism at it without saying he needs to be sacked necessarily. Say, for example, there's plenty of things that I don't think Pochettino's done right. I wouldn't like him starting Levi Colwill at left back. It doesn't mean that I'm saying he needs to be sacked. But with Man United fans, there's almost like, and you know what, I shouldn't level this criticism at all of them, but you see it in the comments especially, and I know that's not the real world all the time, but there's no accountability on Ten Hag's behalf. He can't do anything wrong. Everything, there's other factors. It's the injuries, it's this, it's that. They've had an awful start.
If there's a Man United fan out there right now who isn't contemplating deep down, even if they're not able to bring themselves to say it publicly, because the 99% of the YouTube Man United guys have backed him as if he's the second coming, you have to be thinking in terms of like, surely we've got this wrong a little bit. He can't be as good as you thought.
Can we also address the fact that he's falling out with players, right? Let's say, for example, in any workplace, it doesn't matter whether someone's in a higher, more senior position. You like who you like. So by upsetting one player, he's going to have upset other players in that dressing room. There'll be players that maybe don't think he deserves to be on the pitch, but there'll be players that like Maguire. There'll be players that like Sancho. There'll be players that, for other reasons or whatever, he'll have upset players around him, and it could start to sort of sieve into how other players are perceiving him. And I'm not saying they're down in tools, but it could maybe start to not have them on board.
Let's take McTominay. Do you see that lack of tracking back against Bayern Munich the other day? Like that ain't a coincidence.
And that's his whole thing. That's McTominay's whole thing. He's like no one's saying he's got good technique. He's not a passer. His whole thing is work rate.
Exactly.
So if you've got players who they've been known for their work rate, not running for you, what are you? And also the whole thing with the owners. Like I'm not saying the Glazers are good owners. They're obviously bad owners, but good managers make bad owners look good. Look at Arsenal, right?
Look at Klopp as well.
Yeah, well, exactly. Yeah. For years, Arsenal fans were outside protesting outside the Emirates. They hated the owners. Arteta, good manager, comes in. No one talking about the owners anymore. And the thing with the United owners,
it's so true, mate.
It's true.
No, but it wasn't. But that's the thing. It wasn't just Arteta though. Like you hired Edu, Stan Kroenke. His son started taking more interest in the club and running it properly. You started investing a lot more since Arteta came in.
But what do those guys do? Like in terms of Edu and them, they go out and buy the players. Like what do United fans want the Glazers to do? The Glazers have said to Ten Hag, have as much money as you want, buy whatever players you want. What more do they want?
The fact that they're not getting their primary targets, which I can accept, like sometimes you will end up not getting your first choice, like Newcastle did with Szoboszlai this season.
Yeah, but you're Man United.
Sometimes you got to deal with that.
No, but you're Man United. I think that's why they're frustrated, because you're Man United. Like 10 years ago, you're Man United. You want Harry Kane, you get Harry Kane. Now it's like, we want Harry Kane, we get Højlund, we get fake Haaland now.
Man City don't do that. They couldn't get Maguire. There's plenty of other players that Pep has wanted. He said we couldn't afford him. We didn't want to play the premium. Man United did, or whatever. Like, I think you're all making good points, but the notion that Ten Hag is as good as what everyone said he was last season is complete bullshit now.
Where's the evidence?
And what we're seeing the evidence of is when Rashford or Bruno turn up, they will, nick goals here and there, but he has not got this overall team which he spent hundreds of millions of pounds on, playing anywhere near the Ten Hag ball that was rumoured to be starting.
But what is Ten Hag ball? Like what is Ten Hag?
I've got no idea how
Ajax played it.
I watched them in the Champions League. They were incredible. I watched them in the Champions League. They were playing false nine. It was intelligent, smart, quick football. Ever since he's got United, all it looks like they want to do is play on the break.
So then what's the? But that's what I'm saying. And I'm not saying here trying to defend Ten Hag. I'm trying to make a balanced argument and conversation here. And what I'm saying is, based on what you just said, the common denominator there then seems to be Man United, because you just said, at Ajax, they were playing that football. He's come to Man United and it's changed. And the glaring thing for me about Man United, and the reason I'm saying about the owners and the club as a whole, always goes back to that Cristiano Ronaldo interview he did with Piers Morgan, where he was talking about the club top to bottom. He wasn't even happy with Ten Hag because Ten Hag basically throws him out, but he didn't make the basis of his interview about Ten Hag.
No.
It was about Man United and the club. This is someone who is a legend at that club, loves that club, went back because well, really it wasn't. Yeah, but he
was
went
Ten
back.
Hag's decision to get rid of him, though.
No, I know that, but what I'm saying is when he did the interview, he was criticising the club. He's like, this wasn't the club like I used to love. They're so stagnant that when I left, things looked like this back in 09. Nothing's changed. He was talking about the facilities and the way it's run and all of these things.
The overall football club isn't in the best state, but yet they're still spending more money than everyone else. Ten Hag has been backed. That's not an opinion, is it? You know, and yet we're looking now at this Premier League season. They've lost 4 games this season. It's not even October. They lost 9 the entirety of last season. Like, and the games they have won, we're not sitting there going, that was a great performance from Man United generally. So, if anything, I think we're seeing a second season where it's getting worse, not better. Like.
Normally, you wouldn't associate that with a second season with a manager that's just come in. So, in the first season, at first, for the most part, you'd say, okay, it's not his players and whatever. It's almost been the flip reverse of what you'd normally get. Normally, you'd have a manager being underwhelming, not as successful, but then he gets his players in and then it starts to come good. His players have been shit. For the most part, they've been rubbish, haven't they? Like, he's got his players in, they've been no good.
Because all last season, when you were getting humped 7-0 by Liverpool, it's fine, let him have it off. Next season is when it's terrible.
Yeah.
It's going backwards. So the more players he gets to sign, and the more he's there, the worse it's getting. And yet, we're all delusional. You fucking idiots.
This is the real reason, though, that you need a proper director of football to actually run the acquisition and recruitment for your club. Like, I'm looking at Chelsea now, and fair enough, we're going to have a lot of misses, but we're also going to have a lot of...
But Pochettino is also having a lot to say with transfers.
We're going to have a lot of wins, but then also, like, this is the thing, like, you can't rely on managers.
But managers have a say in all transfers. Eddie Howe does, Pochettino does.
A say. But this guy, he's going, who have I worked with before? Anana, bring it in. You know, who have I worked with?
I'm just saying, it's not a viable excuse for why... The whole point is Ten Hag is this great manager, and that's what I've been told from the day he stepped foot in the door. And him now getting his transfers wrong doesn't exonerate him from being blamed for not being good.
Who would you say is a bad transfer? Who is a wrong transfer?
Anthony, I don't think is going to come good.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say Anthony's going to come good. I think Højlund's a good one. Højlund, I actually think will come good.
We don't even know yet. We don't even know.
At the price tag.
I thought Martinez was a good one.
Yeah, but then this season he's been underwhelming. And sometimes I was making this point, and this is completely hypothetical, but it's like, you know, when players come in and do good, especially in this Man United team, is that because they've come from elevated levels, and then when they start to adapt a little bit, it's like anything, you start to get a bit comfortable and you start letting it slip a little bit.
Here's the main problem is, like, Rashford carried him, Bruno carried him, and he hasn't built a plan B, in my opinion. And whenever that happens, I've said this for months, whenever they don't deliver, Man United look absolutely out of ideas. That's 100% on Ten Hag, and how any Man United fan can make excuses for him at this point, I don't know what to say. I'm actually astounded by the stupidity.
Can I give you another hypothetical? And this is me just thinking into psychology a little bit, maybe. Either Jadon Sancho's really, really stubborn, yeah, or he thinks, I'm not going to come out and apologise to you publicly because you're not going to be here soon because I know you've lost the dressing room. Now, I'm not saying he has lost the dressing room, but I'm saying it's a little hypothetical we can think into there.
Sancho, they brought back Anthony mid-scandal. You know, I'm not saying the guy is guilty or innocent or whatever, but they've brought him back in the middle of this trial and everything that's going on right now. And yet, Jadon Sancho ain't allowed in the fucking place.
He's not allowed to eat with them.
So when you think about it, like, Jadon Sancho, dodgy tweet, you're not allowed in. Anthony, come on down. And it's just interesting logic. You know what I mean?
It's interlinked, obviously.
Yeah.
Like, that decision with Anthony's been made for footballing reasons. They've not made that on a moral decision. They've not looked into these claims properly. If your club have just gone through what they've gone through with Mason Greenwood, you would be so careful with this, wouldn't you?
And yet,
like,
what they said
your
at the end,
nightmare
I don't know
is
if you've seen
again.
the statement, mate, but at the end they're like, we're very aware of how serious allegations are. And it's like, you've not acted that way.
Yeah.
You know?
Then why are you doing it? Like any other club in the world, if that had happened to you in the summer, you'd be going, whatever happens again, we're super duper careful. We don't allow anything like this to happen. We put a player on suspension. We do the proper investigations. Because of footballing reasons, because they don't have any other players that they believe in, that's why Anthony's come back in now. It's not because they think they've done a proper investigation.
They're probably thinking, how often does something like this happen? At least we got a bit of, another one, for God's sake.
Lightning couldn't strike twice now.
Yeah.
Right, well, we'll
Anthony, hold my beer.
We'll park Man United there because I know the Man United fans will get me pissed off with us. But I'm genuinely, I've said so many things about Ten Hag in time, and I'm actually fed up with how you just labelled a hater, and then they keep losing. I'm like, am I still hating for no reason?
Yeah.
Am I just an emotional guy?
You're getting right every game goes by.
Yeah, getting worse and worse.
I wouldn't worry about him getting pissed off. Yeah, I don't think you're in a good books.
No, I'm never going to be. But